Charged with one count of misdemeanor battery for an incident in a Vegas nightclub. According to the report, Griffin willfully and unlawfully used force or violence when he grabbed the hand and allegedly slapped a man who took Griffin's photo with a cell phone. Teammates DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul were with Griffin that night, but were not involved. Maximum penalty, if convicted, is 6 months in jail and or $1,000 fine. Griffin due in court for an arraignment on December 8th. Skip, your reaction.
Stephen A. Smith, this brings up a theme you and I have discussed many times before on this show. And I'm glad Carrie gave all the gory reported details. I wasn't there. I have no idea exactly what happened. I don't even know what the odds are that Blake Griffin could be convicted of misdemeanor battery, which carries, as she said, a maximum penalty of 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine. I don't know anything about that. But I do know this. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. This incident is going to cause Blake Griffin a whole lot of aggravation and take up a whole lot of his time away from basketball. And now we're back to the bigger picture theme here that we have gone back and forth about. I say that by the night, it gets more and more dangerous for a professional athlete or even a college star to go to a night spot, a nightclub, certainly a strip joint. I think it's become at least as dangerous as motorcycle riding or bungee jumping or any other daredevil activity that any of these star athletes could engage in. And again, to reiterate, when you mix star athletes with alcohol, sometimes drugs, sometimes weapons, men who include frustrated athletes or hero worshipers, and women, it is a dangerous, dangerous blend. And again, I don't know what happened in this specific instance, but there's an old 60s song from back in my day, Stephen A., called "The Night Has 1,000 Eyes." Now the night has 1 billion eyes. Everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got the internet in their hand. In a flash, literally in a flash, your image can be all over the world and be talked about by people in countries around the world for what you just did in said night spot. Everyone has a camera. Every establishment of this ilk now has heavy security cameras, so you will not escape detection for any of these incidents, large or small. So to me, more and more, my advice to Blake Griffin, and reportedly he was with DeAndre Jordan and with Chris Paul, but you just can't risk it anymore for this very reason. I know you get a lot of it when you go to airports or walk down the street in Manhattan. People want to take pictures. I get a lot of it. Things can go wrong. People want more than you want to give them. You're in a hurry. You say no. Bad things can happen. But that's just to us out in the street. But this is a nightclub in a confined area, and my advice to athletes everywhere is that more and more you have to be cognizant of you need to party privately, either in a closed room or at home, in the confines of your own home. It's the only way to do it safely anymore because it's getting worse and worse out at the club.
Well, Skip Bayless, you and I have talked about this for years. As a matter of fact, there are times that I've chided you in the past because I asked you how old were you when you thought they should have a curfew 2 years ago. We had that conversation. But in all seriousness, you're not wrong, and the advice that you give comes from the right place. And I think you're to be commended for that, to be quite honest with you. But having said that, allow me to just throw nuggets of information into the equation. Number one, this is a misdemeanor. I think that ultimately it will be pled in some capacity, and Blake Griffin will be beyond this. Number two, and more importantly, I'm willing to bet the house that this incident, whatever transpired, was something that was instigated by somebody else. Blake Griffin can be a sensitive lad. Blake Griffin can wear his emotions on his sleeves as it pertains to his disdain for somebody else because of something that was said to him or about him or whatever. Trust me, I know from experience, okay? But having said all of that, Blake Griffin is a very upstanding guy. Blake Griffin doesn't look to bother anybody, talk to guys throughout the league. He's a guy that relatively keeps to himself, doesn't have a troublemaking bone in his body. This is not who he is. And if there's ever anybody who deserves the benefit of a doubt as it pertains to an incident such as this, it is Blake Griffin. He is a far better person than whatever allegations are being thrown out about him are trying to convey. The one thing that stands out in my mind more importantly than anything else is the fact that DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul were with him. Let me tell you something about Chris Paul. Chris Paul doesn't go clubbing. If Chris Paul was at a club, it was probably, and I don't know this for sure, but I venture to guess, it was something pertaining to business, some kind of brand management event or whatever the case may be, and it was held at a club where those guys were all in attendance. Chris Paul ain't the type of dude that let me just go out and boogie on the dance floor and go to some nightclub. So the word club in this article is thrown out there loosely. I think it's something connected or affiliated with some kind of event for a business purpose, because that's what Chris Paul is about. He's about his business on the basketball court, he's about his business off the court, and he's about his family. So if Chris Paul was in attendance, I'm willing to bet that that had something to do with it, which would explain why DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin were there as well. Then you've got Doc Rivers, a leader extraordinaire. Guys are not going to get on his team and conduct themselves in certain ways and get away with it. He's not going to be on the record saying that he trusts Blake 100%. Doc Rivers is not going to have words like that coming out of his mouth if he thinks in any way that this individual potentially could do something like that. So all of these things are things that need to be taken into consideration. To piggyback off your point, I will acknowledge that we do live in a different world. Skip Bayless, even I don't go clubbing anymore. I stopped that a long time ago. Now, I'll go to a club, meaning that there's a private suite upstairs away from the crowd to go and see people that I want to see. But it's away from all of that. But just to go to a club and party, man, those days are over. I can't get peace going to the airport. I can't get peace walking the streets or sneaking away to cheat on my diet and get some White Castle or something.
I know.
How in God's name am I going to go to a...
Why did they send us that photo, Stephen A?
They ticked me off with that. And that's what, by the way, that's why, listen, I love people. But sometimes I don't like them. Because this is what I'm saying. Everything is everybody else's business. You don't mind shaking hands. You don't mind signing an autograph. You don't mind taking pictures at all. But why does everything have to be on Twitter? How come you can't show your family and friends? Why you got to show the world? You see what I'm saying? There's no such thing as privacy. So if I know that in the position that I'm in, and I don't consider myself some celebrity or star or whatever, but I'm told otherwise. So can you imagine how it is for these professional athletes, which makes your point, Skip, that much more valid, that much more profound, because people don't care about your privacy. They're a younger crowd these days. They're devoid of decorum and decency half the time. And as a result, they will go about the business of trying to be as invasive as they possibly can. I had one guy in Cleveland, Skip, for the opener, got mad because I wouldn't take a picture with him. But he didn't realize I didn't take a picture with him because he literally jumped on my shoulders and tried to give me a bear hug from behind. No introduction, no hello, no. I don't know you. You don't roll up on me like that. So I got him off me. You know, these people think they could do whatever they want to do. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that's what happened with Blake Griffin.
I'm sure it did. But again, to be fair here, and we don't want to try this case on first take because we still don't know exactly what happened.
We don't know.
But something happened. Something happened, and I'm pretty sure it was on tape. So Blake lost his cool, and maybe he had reason to lose his cool, but he lost his cool for a second, no matter how much you and the Clippers vouch for his character.
Well, again, I am going to vouch for his character. I don't know him that well, I'm saying that. But the players that I know who do know him vouch for him, and I'm going to take their word for it. Good. But the other thing that's important is it's not about trying the case on first take. But it goes both ways. If we don't want to try the case to absolve Blake Griffin, we also don't want to try the case to convict him in the court of public opinion. I'm not saying we're doing that. I'm saying by mere virtue of the fact that we're bringing this subject up, that's impugning this man's integrity and name. We don't know who the hell the guy was that he touched, and we don't know what that guy did, but we know that Blake Griffin is in the news today for all the wrong reasons, and he very well may have been completely innocent, but nobody has a problem with putting his name out there.
I hear you.
That ain't right.
But the police, I'm guessing, had enough evidence here to charge him, right? I mean, Please what?
Please, that's not always the case. Sometimes, because an accusation is made, sometimes the police has an obligation to respond. We respect our police, our law enforcement officials. We understand they have a job to do. If somebody makes an accusation, they have to address it with the due diligence it deserves, regardless of what they know to be factually correct or otherwise. If it was clear cut, then Blake Griffin would have had to be in jail for 6 months or pay a $1,000 fine or whatever the case may be. But he gets to make his day in court because he has a different side to the story.
Coming up next, Kobe Bryant is looking